Hey, what's up, everybody? Did you know what? The bike course just got released. And here we go. Episode 5 starts right now. All right, put the apparel away and welcome you back to episode 5 of the DL. And it's sort of like Christmas. It's sort of reality now. Everybody's waiting for the new bike course to come out and wondering what it might be. And hopefully it's not one thing, and they hope it's another thing. But the reality is we've got a new bike course for Ironman Santa Rosa. We're going to dedicate this episode, for the most part, to the new bike course. Talk about it, and I'm going to walk you through section by section by section. And we'll talk about it. So first off, my opinion. And of course, my opinion matters. My opinion is massive improvement. It showcases the county a little bit better, considering the limitations of where we start and where we finish, and trying to keep a course within reason as far as a variety of ability levels. I think they did a heck of a job figuring it out. It's easier to do some really cool stuff and make it really hard. But to find a course that was had as little elevation gain as last year, you have to really search for that. So out of 2 thumbs up, I am going to give it a 1, 2, but I want to turn that one down just a little bit, and I'll talk about where I think, if it was my world and my race, how I might tweak it a little bit. So, but overall, it's pretty good. And in the big picture, compared to last year, if we just compare it to 2017 Ironman Santa Rosa, it will be, yes, a harder bike course, but better roads. You're going to have much better scenery, if you want to call it that, and excuse me, a little less spectator friendly maybe, because we're not doing loops through Santa Rosa. And but overall, better course. It's going to have some similarities to the original Vineman course. So for those of you who have done that, you'll see that you've probably seen it in the course maps, and if you've looked at it, and that's what we've got. So let's get started. So I want to start with just take you piece by piece, maybe segment by segment, as we go through it. I'm gonna drink a little tea here, nursing a little cough, so bear with me. Hopefully no coughing fits for the next 15 minutes. First 10 miles of the bike course, which really takes you into Cloverdale. The first part of it, really the first 7 miles, I think is really influential. First off, we're going to talk, each one of these sections, we'll talk about pavement and some factors. Pavement's going to be really good the first 10 miles. A lot of that road on Dutcher Creek was resurfaced last year. And so good pavement. First 10 miles, it'll be a light chip seal. For those of you who aren't used to it, you can say, "Oh, this is really bad," but it's good surface, it's consistent, and it's better than last year. So overall, when you leave the T1, you have a little uphill after you cross the bridge, and then a long 2-mile downhill that we talked about a couple episodes ago. Good pavement, gradually downhill as you get into Dutcher Creek Road. And Dutcher Creek Road, you're going to have a couple of miles where it's really gradual. It looks like a long climb when you look at the actual profile, but it's really not. It's very gentle, couple percent, it flattens, 2%, flattens again, and then you have a little kick at the end where it's maybe 5%, maybe something like that. I'm not big on the percent thing because it's all relative, but it's 300 or 400 meters. And it's not that big a deal. But I think it's influential as far as the race goes, because I saw a lot of people in that first 7 miles last year to the top of Dutcher Creek that negatively influenced the race by how they rode that section. And we'll talk about, we'll have an execution sort of segment or session episode when we do that. But it can be influential, but it's nothing to really worry about. But I think you can do some damage to your race early on if you're not careful. Then you're going to roll down and up into Cloverdale. Downhill for a lot of it. There's a gradual uphill and lumpy, but you get into Cloverdale. So the first 10 miles is identical to last year. As you get into Cloverdale, you cross the highway. So that next section I'm talking about, essentially oh, mile 10 to is all the way to um, 29 miles. It's almost 30 miles, but 29 miles, which is going to be the corridor in the Alexander Valley. And that's going to be comprised essentially of Ostie and Geyserville Road. They connect to 128. It's essentially one straight segment of road. So that 20-mile segment, and here's what you're going to get. If it's a typical day, if we have wind early, typical wind is out of the north-northwest. So it's going to beat your back, for that 20 miles, which is it's a good scenario, but you don't want to get overboard with that, because your average speed is going to be pretty high when you get to mile 30. It's probably one of the faster segments of the race. The potential for tailwind, and an overall it's a net elevation loss too, from where you are in Cloverdale getting down to where the beginning of Chalk Hill Road is. Very fast, predominantly flat. There's no shoulder for a large part of that, and the road surface is variable, meaning you're going to get some good smooth road. You're going to get some stuff where there's been just some pothole fixed, that kind of thing. And you're also going to get some older pavement that's sort of grainy, which we talked last week about tire pressure. And I think having bright tire pressure through that section is good. And 128 as you get into there. So that whole section is a variety of stuff. Highway 128 used to be phenomenal pavement 10 years ago, but between winery trucks, the buses to the casino, and just general traffic, it's broken down. It's a state highway. It's managed by Caltrans, and what used to be one of the best roads for this race is now going to turn into one of the lesser roads on the course. So you're going to take that all the way mile 30, and about mile 30, you're going to hit Chalk Hill Road at mile 30. So Chalk Hill Road in its entirety is going to be from about mile 29 all the way to mile 37. And that's a pretty influential part of the race. Chalk Hill Road has been resurfaced in the last 2 years. After the Ironman Vineman a year and a half ago, they resurfaced it, did some improvements, laid some pavement, and they did a light chip. There's still some ripples and some bumps in there, but it's much, much improved. It's in the best shape I've seen it since I first came out and raced out here 16 years ago. 20 years ago. So it's in the best shape that it's been in overall, safe to descend, et cetera, et cetera. And so the marquee that people always talk about on Chalk Hill Road is Chalk Hill. What most people call Chalk Hill is really not actually Chalk Hill. After about 2 miles on Chalk Hill Road, you're going to come up on a really short, steep little kicker, and that's technically Chalk Hill, but it's not the hill that most people are going to refer to. So be leery of that. This whole road is about 29 miles to about 37, so about 8 miles long in complete length. And it's rarely flat. It's either up or down or gently rolling. So you very rarely have that kind of rhythm in there. And that's what I think makes the road more difficult for a lot of people, is that you don't get to establish a terrific rhythm on Chalk Hill Road. And the way that I look at it is from mile 29 to 31 is that first couple miles where you have that short, steep climb. You descend from there, and then it's a long, gradual uphill, rolling uphill on Chalk Hill Road. You fall off down a steep, short little descent, and then you start the climb to what most people will call Chalk Hill proper, which is about 3/4 of a mile long. It doesn't gain a lot of grade in the first time around on the course, assuming you have gearing, and we'll talk gearing a little bit at the end of this. Assuming you have the gearing, it's a non-issue. The thing that gets most people is that they show up from out of the area, they don't train on that kind of terrain, and they don't have the right gearing. It's not that they don't have the fitness, they don't have the gearing to get over it. So if you have the right gearing, you can ride in whatever power or heart rate range that you want without damaging the rest of your race. So when you get to the top of Chalk Hill, the great thing about you get to the top of Chalk Hill, especially with the improved pavement now, it's downhill and fast for the remainder of the road, all the way until you get to the intersection of Pleasant and it's actually Pleasant and Faught split at that point, but Chalk Hill Road ends. You're going to take a left on Faught Road. Faught Road was previously featured in all the other Vineman events, Ironman, Vineman 70.3, etc. And Fault Road just over a year ago was completely resurfaced and redone. So it is now glass smooth pavement as opposed to really beat up bumpy road. So that's that segment, which is at about mile 37 to 41, which is Fought and Shiloh Road, and that whole segment is really good. So you'll like that. So Fought to Shiloh is good. And here's the thing about Shiloh Road: on training days, when you come up to train, be leery on Shiloh Road near the Highway 101. There are some big box stores, a Home Depot, and a bunch of other stuff in there. So when you come up to train, when you get into that area, I would just shut your ride down, sit up, pay attention to motorists, pay attention to traffic lights and stop signs, et cetera, and just get through there safe. You don't need any damage done at that point. So just be aware of that. Race day, obviously, there's tons of traffic control, and they'll probably divert people around that area to enter that section or the box stores from another direction. So be leery of that when you train. Really important. So that's all flat. It's very fast. Shiloh Road, and then Shiloh Road, excuse me. Shiloh Road is going to end, is going to tee into Windsor Road. For those of you that have done Byman races, it'll look familiar because we would have taken a right-hand turn to go into Windsor. And I talked before when I gave it the thumb just down a little, I would have loved to seen them take this course. And we're going to go left there on Windsor Road instead of right, and that will turn into Mark West Station Road. I would have loved to seen the bike course go through Windsor down to East Side Road and pick it up where we're going to intersect it at a different point. But not my race. Can't do what I want. I think it would have been terrific for everybody. Spectators would have been a good leaping off place for spectators to drop into Windsor. It would have been good for the economy in Windsor to drop in coffee shops, breakfast shops, whatever it is. People can grab food and then walk out to an intersection and watch people come through. I think it would have been ideal. But still got years to come. So hopefully we can see that in the future. So anyway, back to the intersection, Shiloh and the intersection of Windsor Road. You're going to take a left. And this is a segment from Windsor Road, and I'm going to connect you all the way to West Side Road. It's a couple of different little roads. Windsor Road turns into Mark West Station. You're going to remember this is the road that you ran for the number of years previous on the Ironman 70.3 Santa Rosa course. So going reverse, Windsor Road turns into Mark West Station, Mark West Station Road. And overall, the pavement is okay. You're going to have some unimproved portions, but overall it's okay. It's not great. It's not bad. Then you're going to have some new pavement as you hit Mark West Station Road, and then you're going to have a mile in the middle of Mark West Station Road before you get to Trenton, where you're going to have a long, fast, short descent, which used to run up in the 70.3. My wife and some other people used to call that hill the crusty old effer, just for a little comic relief. But you'll go down that. The pavement is not good for a mile in there. It's just it's an area that gets flooded often. I'm just going to have heads up and be really careful. It might be a section you just don't. It's narrow and you might not even want to ride aero bars through there. But it'll go through quick, and then the road improves again at the end of Mark West Station before you get to Trenton. It's a gradual grade and a grindy grade up from Mark West Station until you hit Trenton Road. You're going to take a right on Trenton Road. You're only going to be on it for a couple hundred meters, but it keeps going gradually uphill to make a left-hand turn onto East Side Road to descend down to Wohler Road, which will connect you to West Side Road. So that segment. So some things to be concerned is about just a lot of terrain changes, up, down, a lot of 90-degree turns. The pavement goes from good to poor, and there's a mix of everything. Wohler Road's the same way. You'll have poor pavement, and you're going to have beautiful pavement before you come up to and cross the epic Wohler Bridge, which there's in the plans for a new one, but not in the next few years anyway. When you cross that will more than likely be a no passing zone. It's a narrow bridge and quite possibly a no aero bar zone. It's short. It's beautiful when you cross there, especially the springtime in May when you're going to get a chance to race. So then we're going to get to West Side Road. And West Side Road is going to start about mile 47. And I think this is the sort of signature gem to the entire course, to the entire race, is the almost 10 miles that you'll spend on West Side Road, about 9 miles. And it's a part of the road or a part of the race where I think you can get carried away, and you have to be really, really good at understanding how to guide yourself up the rollers and down the rollers, because the entirety of West Side Road is small gradual hills, little sharp turns and rollers, and you're going to have to manage your output there. So something to consider and something to think about, in your training and how you approach riding rollers. And again, we'll talk about that in the execution episode when we do that down the road here a little bit. But I think that would be, if I was doing the race, would probably be my favorite 10 miles of the entire bike course would be on West Side Road. And unfortunately, in the previous versions, you would have ridden it twice, only riding it once. So and that's going to take you about mile 56. You're going to be about the halfway point when you make the left-hand turn onto Kinley. And I'm going to break this. This is going to be a big section. So Kinley Road to a left-hand turn on Dry Creek Road, all the way to the top of Canyon Road. So Kinley is gently rolling. It's got a couple undulations in it. And Dry Creek Road is predominantly flat with a couple small hills. But we talked about potential wind out of the north-northwest. If there's wind from the north-northwest, you're going to be riding due into a headwind all the way till you make the right-hander onto Canyon Road. And Canyon, when you look at it, is going to look like a climb. Yes, it's a climb. It's about 2 miles long, but it's really, really gentle with just a little bit turned up at the top. It's going to be similar to Dutcher Creek Road, except more gradual, believe it or not, as you go all the way to the top of it. So top of Canyon Road is going to get you to about mile 66. So that's another 10 miles. And in the next section, going down the descent on, let's go back, pavement on that. Pavement on West Side Road, really good pavement. A lot of smooth pavement. There's some light chip in segments, but overall, way better than it ever was 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago, et cetera. So these roads are in best condition they've been in since I've lived here. So for the most part, other than 128. So Dry Creek is like a gentle a light chip seal, as is Canyon Road. So consistent pavement, no potholes, shoulder for some of it, no shoulder for other parts of it. So be careful when you train out there, especially 128. Dry Creek Road. You're going to get people towing boats up to the lake as the weather gets warmer. So just be leery of that. So Canyon Road, talked about that. Similar surface as Dry Creek. So at the top of Canyon Road, and this is key, before in the races, you would have a long, fast descent. For some people, you could push 50 miles an hour. Heavier riders, more aero bikes or wheels and things like that, all the way underneath the 101, because you were making a right-hand turn onto 128, so you could let it run out a little bit. But it's going to be different now. You're going to be descending, and before you get to the 101 overpass, you're going to be making a left-hand turn onto Chianti Road. So just when you're going to be close to max speed, you're going to have to scrub speed and take the left-hand turn onto Chianti Road, which runs north and parallel to 101 for a little while. And they're doing this because they need the mileage. Chianti Road is gentle. The pavement is like chip. So you'll ride that up into its 3-ish miles before you'll make a right-hand turn onto Zanzi, underneath the highway, to make a right-hand turn back onto Asti Road where you were earlier. So at that point, again, Chianti to the right-hander that goes underneath the bridge, and you come into Asti Road. So that's going to be mile 69, which earlier in the race, that is going to be what was your mile 14. So this next segment, I'm not going to talk about it because we've already talked about it. It's essentially your mile 14, okay, all the way to mile 40. It would have been your 14 to 42-ish, and this is 69 to 97. So your 69 to 97 is identical to your 14 to 42. All right, so it's a repeat of that. Geyserville Ave, Highway 128, Chalk Hill Road, Fault Road, Shiloh Road, Windsor Road, which turns into Mark West Station, and then at mile 97-ish, 6-ish is when we split, and you're going to head back to Santa Rosa. So heading back to Santa Rosa, you're making a left-hand turn. And I should say this. We go back to the top of Chalk Hill Road. which is going to be about mile 90-ish. The last 22 miles of the course should ride reasonably fast. After you're over Chalk Hill Road, the last climb on Chalk Hill Road, there really are no climbs left. There's a couple little bumps and a couple rollers, but your last 22 miles is predominantly flat. It should be reasonably quick, and you shouldn't have any problem executing it the way you want to execute it because of the terrain. So there shouldn't be a problem. So fast forward back. The left-hand turn onto Slusser at mile 96-ish. Slusser Road, we used to run that in the 70.3 race, not last year, but the Vineman editions. Rolling with a little hill at the end of Slusser to a left-hand turn onto Laughlin Road in front of La Crema Winery. The pavement in those areas is reasonably good, light chip seal. The roads are narrow, so just keep your heads up as you do that. And then Laughlin Road will end, and you're going to make a right-hand turn on what continues to be Laughlin Road as well. And when you make a turn on here, this section of road is probably not even 2 miles long, but it's narrow, and it has 1, 2, 3 90-degree turns. Actually, 4 90-degree turns, and there's a 1-lane bridge. Though there's not much residency on the road, so there shouldn't be much traffic, and I'm quite positive they'll have good traffic control on that road. So, but it's narrow. Keep your heads up because you get tired at that point during the race. The last 20 miles, we start to zone out a little bit. Our blood sugar starts to get low. Our concentration and our focus is a little different, and there's going to be a variety of pavement in there. Potholes that have been filled and cleaned up, and good pavement and bad pavement. So just make sure you have a heads up as you come up to River Road. And in training, be really careful in there. Cars go in both directions, and it's a narrow road. So if you train that, just be careful. Be leery of vehicles going in and out of there. And then you're going to come up to and cross River Road. So in race day, you'll be fine. You'll be safe. And it's a wide open area to be able to see to cross. But if you go to train, and you're crossing River Road, cars are moving really, really fast on that road. So you're going to go straight across onto Woolsey Road. Woolsey Road, that section of pavement was just resurfaced as well. It's a light chip seal, so it's consistent. It rides pretty fair all the way up to Olivet Road. And it's just gentle rolls. Again, there's no climbing left at the end of this bike course, the last 22 miles. Then you're going to make a left on Olivet. And Olivet is really gentle grades. There's a couple little rollers towards the end of it, light chip seal. And in training, again, be super careful on this road if you ride it. We ride it, but we typically will only ride it certain times a day because it can get trafficky because it's an intersection or a thoroughfare between two major roads. So be careful there as you're coming back into town. And there's always a possibility with the way our county is and the way the winds change. The winds can change here. Sometimes you'll have that tailwind up north, I was talking about, which in theory would be a tailwind on all of that. But sometimes the way the weather is, it can turn around and get a little headwind on all of that. Tends not to be very much, but at mile 100 and some change, you'll feel it. So, and then you're gonna make a left-hand turn onto Guerneville Road, and you're back where you were last year at the end of the 70.3 race, or when you were finishing the first sort of 56 miles of the Ironman race. So Guerneville Road, you'll make a right-hand turn onto Willowside. Now, Willowside's a mile long. It's little gentle grades, but the pavement is poor. I mean, it's just the way that it is. We've dealt with it our entire existence here in Sonoma County. We don't ride it very often because the pavement is poor, and when we do, we're just careful because we're trying to get from one road to the next. So just be careful. It's going to be bumpy, and you're going to be tired. You're not going to be on the saddle anymore, so it's going to feel much worse than it really is. So be patient on Willowside Road. Left-hand turn onto Hall, which turns into West 3rd, and you're going to, and at that point on West 3rd, you're getting into the city of Santa Rosa. So be leery of traffic control, pay attention to the cones and the directions of the volunteers and the officers, et cetera, as you loop through town. All reasonably good pavement. It's in the city. And then you're going to come up down into downtown, and you're going to dismount at 3rd Street, right in front of Two Tread Brewery. And then you're going to be off to your run. So in a big chunk, there's your bike course. Like I said, overall, it's a better course. It's Definitely it's more challenging, but it's fair and it's challenging. And it gives you a better depiction of what Sonoma County is about, and what we train on and what we ride for the most part. And I think the key factors for people when you're training, and I know people are trying to get GPX files and ride it on their simulated trainer, and that'll work. But the reality is that if you just train your fitness first, don't worry so much about the course. Train your fitness, because there's really nothing on the course that if you have your fitness and you have the gearing that you can't handle. Excuse me. If you have that, you're not going to have any issues. and the GPX file is not going to give you the feel of the roller. So sorry. Sorry about that, guys. So make sure you have the right gearing. We can talk gearing at a different time, or if you have questions, I can pop them on the Facebook pages and stuff like that. But I think a popular gearing for a lot of people is going to be like an 1130. For a lot of athletes, especially if you're riding over 6 hours and maybe even just a little under, that'll get you over everything as comfortable as you feel. That time of year, the wind can tend to excuse me, tends to be reasonably light. Get your gearing sorted and just get fit. Just get fit and be able to ride the distance and be able to handle the changes in terrain and the undulations and know how to do that. If you can do that, you're going to be fine. You don't have to go out and do any big climbs, but just get fit. Sorry, I didn't say that a few times, but if you get fit, you'll have it dialed in. So I'm going to wrap with that, and then I'm going to skip all the other stuff because this one's getting long, and then we'll come back to our normal format next week. And the other thing too, we're 13 weeks out. Something to consider: 13 to 12, or maybe 12 to 11, or even 11 to 10, depending on where you are. I mentioned this last week, but maybe a good time to unload your training, to give you an idea of how tired you are or you aren't, also to freshen your brain and your body up for that last sort of block or two of training going into the final race. So if you're training 12 hours a week, you might drop it all the way down to 4 to 6 hours and just be really ready mentally and physically to hit the final block of training. So until I see you guys next week, thanks for dropping into episode 5, the bike course edition, and 2 almost thumbs up. It's gonna be an awesome course, and you guys are gonna enjoy this one. Stay safe, stay healthy, keep hitting your training, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care. Bye.